Hey, how's it going? This is Chris. Hope you're doing all right. I make these web development tutorials, so if you like them, go ahead and subscribe. I put one or two out every week. Today's focus is going to be on putting together a portfolio using Gatsby. So I've seen a lot of people talk about wanting to get a portfolio built, maybe not knowing where to start, but having something that they can show off to potential employers as a collection of their work and kind of as like a supplement to a resume. So we're going to put something together using Gatsby and just plain old CSS. Not getting too fancy here. So let's go ahead and get started. If you don't yet have the Gatsby CLI installed, just make sure you run npm install dash g for global Gatsby CLI, Gatsby dash CLI. I've already got that installed. So I'm just in a directory here. I'm going to do Gatsby new, and I'll call it portfolio dash 2020. And that'll take a second. This is going to give us the default starter with all of the boilerplate for us. So it's going to set us up with a couple of different files and some default folders. Super nice. If you want to, I showed in a previous video how to get started with a starter template. There are some nice templates out there, especially for folks that maybe don't feel as confident about their design skills. You can just look up Gatsby starters and use one of those as a starter, but we're just going to use the default. So we can change directories into portfolio. I'm going to run code dot to open it up. Give us a little bit more space there. I'm actually going to bring this down a little bit. Okay. And then open up the terminal and do Gatsby develop. So inside here, a lot of these files we won't need right off the bat. Gatsby config is going to be important for any, you can access your metadata here for the SEO component. You can also add any plugins that you might want to use. The only other one, probably right off the bat, that you might use down the road is this Gatsby node. I've used it lots of times for the create pages functionality. So if for example you turn this into a blog, you might use Gatsby node to automatically generate pages. So we're not going to touch this for now. Let's go ahead and open up our pages index. We can do localhost 8000, and here's our default starter. Cool. So let's go ahead and get rid of all of this stuff. We won't need that. And we've got our header here and our footer. So these are from our layout component. So let's go ahead and check out our components, layout. So for this, we're just going to make this portfolio a single page. You might want to put some links up here for navigation if you were going to have other pages or if you wanted to implement like smooth scrolling or things like that. We don't need it. So let's go ahead and get rid of this styling here. We can actually get rid of the header. The footer is fine, so we can save this. Cool. So now we've just got our layout component and it's just showing this footer here. So one thing that we want to do, regardless of the content on the page, eventually this would be pushed down to the bottom, but it's a nice implementation anyway, is to mess with this this component a little bit so your footer actually sticks to the bottom. So what we're going to do here is we can just give this some inline styling. We are going to wrap Actually, we don't need to wrap. So we can just do this style. And break it into a new line. And we'll do display flex. We'll do flex direction column. And we'll give it a min height of 100% of the viewport height. And then for the main, what we'll do is we'll give it a style with flex grow of 1. And that should be good. Cool, so now it's stuck to the bottom. So regardless of any content that, you know, if for some reason your content was only here, your footer would still be stuck to the bottom of the page, which is nice. We can also, you can put built with Gatsby down here if you want to. I'm just going to replace it with my name. So we can say built by Chris. Actually, we'll just do my name. Hit save, and we'll give that an inline style as well. And we'll just do text align center. Cool. So we'll try and stay away from inline styling, and I might actually come back and clean this up a little bit and use the CSS. But for now, this is fine. So we can close that up. And now onto our index. So this SEO component is nice. It's passing in our home page and then the Gatsby default starter. Let's go ahead and update that. So instead of Gatsby default starter, you can put your name and then description. This would be any sort of meta information. So you could put a portfolio site that shows examples of my dope JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and Gatsby skills, or whatever you want to put there. Oh, and it actually did update. So sometimes you have to restart the dev server, but it actually implemented that update for us already, which is pretty cool. You can put your, you know, if you want to put like your Twitter handle here, that's also something that you can use. Cool. So next, what I'm gonna do is grab this. I'm gonna use this as a background image. I just thought it looked kind of cool. It's off this site called Vecteezy, and so they have like free images that you can give credit with a link, or you can pay for it or do a pro version as well. So they've got lots of really cool images and things that we can use. So I'm gonna grab the downloaded file that I have and drop it into my images. I'm going to do the SVG version. And then on my index page, I'm going to do, we'll call this header. And we'll give it a class name of header. And we can give it an H1 and says, hi, I'm Chris. And then we can go into, so it looks like layout CSS is where all of our like default everything goes. So for this, we'll just, I'll comment out default styling below. And then up here, do background image. And we'll do URL // images / All right, cool. So that's a start. So the issue here is that it doesn't this header section doesn't have any content, so it doesn't really have any height. So let's go ahead and give it, we'll do min height of 50 VH. So it'll take up half of the viewport height. Let's play with the background size a little bit. Let's see, cover. That looks pretty good. So now inside of, we want this H1 maybe to maybe float somewhere in the middle here, and we want it to be a little bit more visible. So let's grab the H1 in the header. And actually, let's make the header display flex, and then justify content center and align item center. Cool. For our H1, let's go ahead and give it a little bit of like kind of a background opacity sort of layer that it can sit on top of. So we can go and do background, and let's do RGBA, and let's start with like 100, 100, 100, and then 0.5. All right, so there's a little bit of a background there. Let's try and give it some padding. Just see what 2rem looks like. It looks like our H1 might have some default styling below already. Let's add the header class to make it more specific. Cool. That doesn't look great. Let's do top and bottom of 1 and left and right is 2. That's a little bit better. Okay, cool. And then maybe let's see what like a border radius looks like on this. Do like 5 pixels to soften it up a little bit. That looks fine. I would maybe play with the background a little bit on there, the colors. We can see if we can let's try kind of a darker black that's not entirely black. Oops. One more. There we go. Let's see if we can lighten this up a little bit and see how that looks. A little bit softer than that kind of hard black. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and add like a little brief bio here, and then we can actually wrap this in another div. So I'm a JavaScript, or let's do front end developer who loves to work with JavaScript, CSS, and we'll say Node on the back end too. When I'm not coding, you can find me hiking with my dogs or whatever, some sort of like little brief bio thing here. So you can see that that kind of messed up what we were working with so far. So let's grab this, we'll cut it, we'll wrap it in a div and paste it. Oops. So cut, div, paste, and we'll give this a class name of header intro. So I did 2 underscores there. And then here, let's readjust some things. So this all looks fine. So what we can do is do intro. Cool. And then let's do our header intro h1. We'll do text align center. Cool. I'm not loving this font situation here. So let's go ahead to Google Fonts. And let's see if there's... so Lados, or Lado, or however you pronounce it, that one's kind of good. So let's see, and let's see if I can expand this a little bit. Okay, so yeah, this is cool. The pairings. So let's see. Lato and Open Sans, Lato and Oswald. I like this Lato and Railway combination here. So let's see. Let's go ahead and add the regular. That's probably fine. And then let's grab this Railway as well. And grab this. Okay, so we can go to this embed here, and in our layout CSS, so let me pop this back over a little bit. Let's use the import at the top. So like that. And then we can go down here. I'm going to Control F for font family. And just go through these and make sure. So we're going to have the Railway as our body. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll do Railway. I'll copy that. And let's get rid of this sans serif for our body. And then let's see where else we got. So body, we can get rid of this since we already declared it above. H1. Okay, so this looks like it's all going to be the same. So I'm going to select this to the end, and then I'm going to Control D to grab all of the H6s. I'm going, or all of the headers, excuse me, H1 through H6. I'm going to delete. I'm going to go over here, grab Lato, pop back over, and then paste, and then just scroll up to make sure that I got all the headers covered. So there's, cool. So those are all in there. So now we've updated all of our fonts. And that looks a little bit better. I don't think it looks awesome, but it's, I think, better than it was for sure. So cool. So again, just that process of making sure you import it and then update your fonts down below with Google Fonts. So next, let's go ahead and add a little section. So we've got like a little bio. If you wanted to add like another little descriptor section down here, that would be fine. But I think a good move, good next step is to add some of your projects. So we'll do class name equals projects. And then what we're going to do here is we'll set each of these projects up on like a little card. So we'll do div, and actually let's rename this for better semantic HTML. We'll do section instead of a div. It's a little more descriptive. And we'll do div here, and we'll call this class name equals projects card. And we'll do a couple of those. We'll do 3. Okay, so if you've got like your GitHub or whatever, wherever you can show your projects. Something that I like to do is to have both the like a link to a live version of the project, but more importantly, having a link to the repo. So let's get some information up here. We'll do a little H2, and I'll put the name of my project, so shoot for teams. I'll grab, I'll do a little description. We'll do React app for finding nearby basketball courts. And then we'll do repo, and we'll do project. How about? So I'm going to grab the link to the repo and paste it in, and then I'll do the same thing for the actual project. And so let's see how we're looking so far. All right, so it's actually still all here. Let's make sure. So this div ends here. Oh, because the header is wrapping this whole thing. So let's get out of, let's grab this header and make sure that it's only wrapping this top part here. There we go. That's better. All right, so we have our first little section card deal. I'm actually going to delete this so we can maintain the same structure, and then just copy this twice. All right, let's take a look at some other projects. So here's a second one that's for a CrossFit gym. And this one is CrossFit Strive Bass Drop. We'll update the title. And the description. And feel free, if you have your own examples, obviously, like, put those. You don't want to put links to projects that I've worked on. But yeah, so if you're just following along to get like an example down, like, go ahead, this is fine, use these, do what you will. But then when you're working on it on your own time, make sure that you update these to reflect stuff that you've actually worked on. So we'll do web app for local CrossFit gym. And then let's do one more. We'll do a link to an open source project. So this one is not going to have my handle. It'll have the Rosie Sews here. And this is an open source project that I've made some contributions to, and this would be a great example of something to include on a portfolio page. So maybe you don't have a ton of your own personal projects that you're working on. Even if you've only made a couple of pull requests, you can still link a project and just make sure you mention it in the description. So we'll do masks now, and we can do open source project for connecting people with supplies to help support COVID. I don't know if victims is the right word, but COVID patients, let's say. So there's the repo, and then the actual URL. And There we go. We've got our three. So let's go ahead and start making these look a little bit better. So we have our projects. So let's grab that class and do projects, display, flex. So that puts them in a row here, which is good. Let's do justify content, and we'll do space evenly. Okay, they look like they're maybe already spaced. Doesn't look. Let's see if we do space around. Nothing yet. We'll come back to this one. Let's grab this next class, this projects card. And let's give it a width of 33.3%. All right, that's a little bit better. Now let's do space evenly and see if we get a little bit. All right, still nothing. That's fine. All right, so let's go ahead and give these. Let's give this projects section a little bit of breathing room. So we'll do padding, and so we're not running up against the edge here. We can do 2 rem top and bottom and 1 rem left and right. We can do a background, and let's grab that color from up above, this kind of darker color. Okay. Then let's, on our projects card, let's give it a color of something lighter so we can actually see those. Let's give each card a margin of 0 top and bottom and 1 rem left and right. And let's give these cards, actually, you know what? We can give them a background of that. And then cool, and then the color stays black. Let's go ahead and give it some padding to give some space. So we'll do, start off with 2 rem, see what that looks like. All right. Let's go ahead and also style up these, let's style up these links. So for our anchor tags, we want text decoration, none. We can do color. This darker color here. All right. And then I'm not loving how this is like at different heights here. So let's go ahead and actually split up the description and the links in our index. So we can, I'm gonna give some more room here. So we can grab this section, cut it, do a div, and paste. And then same thing here. And paste. And then this class name, we can actually, I'll just copy this down. And give it a modifier of description and links. And I'm just using something that's called BEM. It's a system of naming. You don't have to follow this. It just helps it give a little bit more structure. But if you have like the main block is projects, this whole like block here, and then E is for element. So one of the elements would be like this card. And then if I'm modifying the card, I guess technically this could be an element. So an element of the card. So I could do like underscore underscore description would probably be more accurate. And then if I was going to like modify a link, it could be like secondary or primary or whatever. Honestly, it's not a huge deal, but just something to think about when you're moving forward, so you have a little bit of consistency for your naming and class sort of conventions. So I'll just do the same thing down here. I'll pop them into their own divs. I'll grab the class names. So the description, tab this over, and the links. And then one more. Description, pasting it into the div, tabbing these over, and then the last one for this card. And I'll paste that in and then grab the links. And so now that we've got these separated a little bit better, oops, now that we've got them separated a little bit better, we can do a little bit more specific design type stuff. So let me just grab this links and then description. So what we can do with the card is we can actually give this a display of flex. And now it looks all janky, but we can give it a flex direction of column. Okay, so now it's back to normal. And then we can do justify content. We'll do space between. And so now it takes these two divs, which we can see the description, or we can see the card here. So the description and the links, and it's going to push them as far out as possible. And then the padding is going to take care of that rest of that spacing. So space between on flex, if we have these two divs here, it basically like draws a line down the middle and pushes the first div as high as possible and the last one as low as possible. So we need the links next to spread these out. So for those links, we'll do display flex again. And we can do justify content. We can do space. Let's try space around and see what that looks like. Yeah, that's looking okay. Let's try space between as well to line it up. So that's just a matter of preference. If you want them lined up with the text, do space between. I prefer space around. I think it looks a little bit better, but it's just a matter of preference. So next, let's give these links a little bit of movement whenever you hover over them. So we're gonna make this a little bit more specific. We'll grab this class and put it in front of the anchor tag to make it specific, so it's not impacting any of the other anchor tags that we might use later on. So we're still good there. And we're going to give it a transition property of background position. We'll do 120 milliseconds. Get rid of that colon. Then we're going to give it a background image of linear gradient. We'll do transparent 0%, transparent calc 50% minus 9 pixels. We'll do RGBA We're gonna give it this like kind of orangey color right now, so we'll do 255, 164, 161, and then 0.5 for the opacity, and calc 50% minus 9 pixels, and then we'll do RGBA 255, 164, 161, 0.5, and 100%. Okay, so just save that, and then we'll do background size of 100%, and we'll do 200%, and then background position of 0 pixels, 0 pixels. Oops, 0 pixels, 0 pixels. Let's see if we get rid of this project links card here. Nothing yet. Let's see if there's something that I'm missing. So we'll put that back. Oh yeah, because it's calc. All right, cool. So there we go. So we get this little like kind of underline effect. And what we want to do is when we hover over it, we want the color to change, and we want it to raise up. And if you're not into that specific color, you can even like play with it here. So like let's actually grab like one of these background colors here. So I've got this color picker, copied it there. I can hover over. Actually, I'll just search for this and grab the RGB. I'll go back and I'll just replace this RGB without the transparency there. And so now I've got a little purpley sort of color that matches a little bit better with our background here. And actually that reminds me, I'm gonna probably touch this up to make it a little bit of a kind of a darker shade of purple instead of this black. It'll be a little bit more cohesive. So then we're gonna grab this again, and we're gonna target it for whenever you hover. And we'll do basically the same thing, but with a few changes. So we'll grab this background image, and we can actually make this, we can up this to, let's say 1, and hit save, and then let's see. So you can see that it's getting darker, and let's do background position of center. And so now it covers it. So that looks, the effect looks cool, but you can't see the text anymore. So let's actually also transition the color. So we'll do color F7, 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 and we'll add this to our list here. We'll do color 120 milliseconds as well. That doesn't look great. Oh, let's put a comma there. All right, cool. So now whenever you hover over it, it kind of gives it a little highlighter effect. And I mentioned I want to change this up a little bit. So let's grab this. Let's start with this darker color here, this darker purple, and go to our projects and do RGB and paste it in. And that's looking okay. I want to see it a little bit darker. So it's almost black, but it's got that kind of hint of purple in it. I think that looks better than just the black. Okay, cool. Then one more section toward the bottom. I like to include links to like socials and things like that. So we can add, we can actually just put this in our footer. So if we go back to components, layout, if we go back to our footer, we can just add some stuff here, and then we can target it in our layout.css file. So I'm going to actually shut this down, and I'm going to do npm install react icons. And this is a library that's going to have lots of different SVG icons that you can use. And so it's nice to use it for, like this section that we're about to use it for. So let me look it up real quick. React icons. This has a handful of different libraries that you can choose from. I like Font Awesome, for example. And if you're on, so one kind of like workaround here, since there's not a searchable spot, is you can just do Control or Command F, and let's do like Facebook, and you can see a couple of different options for Facebook. If you've got a Twitter account, same thing. So it's still loading, so I'll come back in just a second once it's done. All right, so now that's finished up. I'll start the server back up. And then up at the top, I'm going to import a couple things. So we don't need this header anymore. I'll do import and then do the curly braces and then do React icons/FA. So we'll use Font Awesome. And I did this first so that it'll autocomplete for us. So let's do FA Twitter. Let's see if they got a GitHub. No GitHub. Oh, okay, let's see. There we go. We can do FA GitHub. Cool. Is that what it was? GitHub? Yeah. We can do email. Or how about mail? Or maybe it's envelope. Yeah, envelope. Let's see what our options are. FA envelope looks good to me. So that should be good for now. So down in our footer, let's go ahead and we'll split this up into 2 sections, so we can actually let's get. I said we're gonna clean up this inline styling, so we can get rid of that, and we can do div. We'll do class name equals footer socials, and then we'll do another div. It says class name footer attributions, and let's grab this and pop it up, and then from earlier, let's make sure we attribute the artist for Vecteezy. So let's go ahead and just paste in that down below. And then what we'll need is we can do an href with our links with the different icons down below. So let's do, what we have first? Twitter. So we can grab this, go in between, whoops, do FA Twitter. Oh, FA Twitter. And then let's close this back a little bit again. So we've got Twitter, and you can just put your Twitter thing. Oh, LinkedIn would probably be another one to put on here. So twitter.com/DaSilvaDev. And we can repeat this. We're going to grab LinkedIn. Oh, geez. What happened there? I guess I pasted it in. All right, so let's start this over. Sorry, hopefully you didn't make that same mistake. All right. All right, here we go. Take two. So now we'll grab these and just update them accordingly. So we can do, I'm sure they've got an FA linked in. Yeah, cool. So LinkedIn, GitHub, and envelope. And we can just update these. So LinkedIn, for GitHub. Let's see, I've got that open so I can just grab the link from there, copy and paste it. And then for the envelope, we'll do mail to, and then we'll do chris@silvadev.com. All right, and then if we scroll to the bottom, so there's our content, and we can make it look a little bit better. So now that we did this kind of dark section, let's grab maybe a lighter color from the inside here. And let's go to our layout. And let's give this actually a class name before we go. So footer. And so then back to our layout underneath projects. Let's do footer. We'll do background. That we'll do color. That almost white color. Let's do our footer links. So yeah, and we'll just start by targeting any of these links and make them text decoration none. And color, we'll do white, or that light color. Okay, cool. Let's see what we got. Oh, so this gap here is because this is actually not taking up the entire space. So if you wanted to get, if you have more content, I would recommend, and especially if you have multiple pages, you can use this like flex grow 100 VH, this trick that I showed earlier. If not, then we can get rid of that, and then you just have white space at the bottom. So it's up to you. If you're adding, like I said, if you're adding more content, I would, it's going to push it down anyway, but this is just a trick to show you how to keep that footer stuck to the bottom. So you can reference that as you need. And one way we can kind of get around this too is we can set our background color to this on our body. So if we find the body and we do background, that'll just, any of that kind of empty space is just going to get covered up anyway with the background color. So that's another option for you. All right, so back to our footer. Let's check out what were the class names called. So we had footer socials. And we want the footer also to be a flex, display flex, and then a flex column. So we'll do display flex. It's going to put it in a row for us by default. So let's do flex direction column. We can align items to the center, and that's going to push it there for us. And let's do justify content space between. So that's not doing anything because we don't have any, like, it's a little kind of misleading looking because remember this space is actually empty and the footer is only this very bottom space here. So let's give it some padding. We'll do top and bottom of 2 and left and right of 1. Cool, so that's looking all right. And then let's get this footer link situation. So where are we at? Oh, back in the layout. So our footer socials, and then we can work on the attribution section. So our footer socials, let's do dot footer socials, and let's do display flex and justify content. Let's see what space evenly looks like. Let's see. Let's give it a width first of, we'll say 50% of that footer. Okay, that might be a little bit much, but let's see if we can do space around and see if that looks a little better. Nope. Even worse. All right, so let's do space evenly. And you can also, like, another option is to like give these margin from each other as well. But this is just one way that I like to do it. Okay, 25%, that looks fine. And then let's grab the footer attribution section. And we'll display that flex and flex direction column. And we'll align that to the center. And there we go. So if you want to add a like a hover effect to this too, to these different links, you saw how I did that with the just by targeting the hover, and so you would just want to make sure that on the whatever the like main class is, you set the transition property with the time, and if you have multiple, just set it with a comma in between to get an effect like this. If you have like the background position and the color, for example, both changing. And then one other thing that we're gonna need to do, and we can just kind of put this together pretty quickly, is if we shrink this, that starts to look pretty bad. So we want to make sure that we're using media queries to clean this up a little bit on smaller screens. So let's take a few minutes to make this responsive. So if we open up the inspector and grab this device toolbar, we can shrink this down a little bit. All right, never mind. We can play with this and see when it starts to kind of break down a little bit. So let's shrink it. It's looking okay. So this, around this kind of like 760-ish, 768 maybe, as a common device breakpoint, we can just go ahead and stack these. So down below, let's do @media screen and max width of 768 pixels. We're going to need to target this section. So let's go back up and do project. Let's see, projects card. So we'll put it in there. And let's give it a width of 100% instead of 33. Actually, instead of that, let's give it a flex direction of column. Okay, we're at 730. Oh, this should not be projects card, it should be projects. Let me just double check that. Yeah, projects, not project card. Okay, cool. So now it's stacked, but we want to make sure that the project cards take up the full width because right now they're just at 33%. So now we can target the width. Make them take up the full space. Let's see what's going on here. So we've got that margin on the card. And let's check and see what we set that at. So we had margin 0, 1. So top and bottom was 0, left and right was 1. So let's flip that. And so now they've got some space between them, and we're not bleeding off the screen here. And then when we get back above 768, cool. So now it's nice and responsive for us. Awesome. So that's as far as I'm going to go, but a couple of extensions that you could make off of this. I think it's good practice to like take a tutorial and then build upon it. Obviously, making the styling, like this is a ton of purple. Maybe you like that, maybe you don't. But playing around with the styling, you could add sass to this. You could try and experiment with styled components. You could add different sections. So maybe you add, maybe you have something up here and then maybe you have a bio section. You could add a layout with different links. So maybe you have links to your project and projects page and your about page. You could also include a link to your resume. So maybe down here you have like a little icon that has a resume link, and you click on it and there's a download. So something to look up for that would be like how to download PDFs from an HTML tag. It's something that you can look up how to do and actually implement pretty quickly. Another idea would be to add like little images to this. So even if you don't have images for your project specifically, you could like go pop down and grab, like if you're on a Mac, you could just do, I think it's Command Shift 4 for like a little snipping tool to just like drag out a little snip and grab a picture of it and paste it in here. On Windows, you can actually grab the snipping tool and just take a little screen grab of a little chunk of your project and pop it in here. So lots of different ideas. This is pretty basic, but it's going to get you what you need in terms of showing off some of your projects, giving you a little bit of a section for your bio, and then opportunities for people to contact you, because that's going to be super important. And of course, when you're sending applications to different jobs and different positions, you want to have some examples of your work, and this illustrates that very well. So thanks for hanging out with this. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and subscribe and like it. Leave any comments if you got any questions or maybe suggestions for other folks that are working on this. And otherwise, hope you're having a good day, and I will talk to you soon.